Guys, and welcome into JBM Sports Media's reaction to Super Bowl 60. I'm going to be honest with you, this game, kind of the first three quarters was pretty much a snooze fest. Seattle's defense dominated New England the first three quarters of the game, and it got a little spicy at the end, but not enough that even made me threaten or think that New England even had a chance in this game. Ben, what is maybe some of your biggest takeaways with Super Bowl 60?
Absolutely. First and foremost, congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks back on the mountaintop in the NFL right here. I mean, crazy season they've had. I mean, a complete 180 with that organization. Mike Macdonald, head coach, first head coach to win it, calling the defensive play calling, basically the defensive side. Historic stat right there. Sam Darnold, first quarterback to win it from the 2018 draft class over Allen, over guys like Lamar Jackson as well. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I'll say that. So in this game right here, breaking it down, I think in your predictions, you kind of called it perfectly, right on the dot. Technically, the Patriots were in it a little bit at the end, but the Seahawks defense completely obliterated them. That offensive line couldn't hold its own against that Seahawks D line. And I will say in the first half, a lot of credit to the Patriots defense because they did hold their own. I think going into was it 9-0 going into halftime? It was still a game where I saw, all right, they get the ball at third quarter. Maybe they could make something happen right here, but it just didn't pay out to be that way. And is that because of McDaniel's play calling? Is it because of May in the moment? Obviously, we talked about it very thoroughly. Which quarterback make the most mistakes would be the losing side. And yeah, we were right.
Yeah, I came out bold with my takes on on this game, and I said New England didn't belong here. Kind of seemed that to be true. They did not look like like I said, the first three quarters of this game. They did not look like they belong. They believe they punted every possession. They looked atrocious. I'm going to be honest with you. They finally came to life a little bit towards the end. Like you said, I'll give credit to that defense. That was maybe the only credit I'm really going to give them so far. The defense did look solid. They held Seattle. I felt Seattle was going to come out firing with their offense, and they didn't. The other thing, Kenneth Walker, MVP, dude lit it up. He lit it up, and it was funny. Towards the end of the game, he breaks that run and scores that touchdown. Obviously, gets pulled back on the flag, and I just went, "Oh my God, that's my pick. He's got it." And then it was like, I don't know if he might still do it. I mean, I think he had 160 total yards with receiving and rushing, had 130 on the ground. He looked unstoppable at some points. I don't know how many times he ran backwards and then made it a positive game. He was the key, in my opinion, to this offense. Darnold didn't look bad. He did what he had to do. He protected the ball. He didn't turn it over. So that was solid. And Seattle's defense was ruthless. They were ruthless from the beginning. They were constantly giving May problems, and they showed that like I said in our predictions, that they were the team. They were the Super Bowl caliber team in this matchup, and it's just that it showed big time.
Yeah, and I think even moments in this game where the Patriots had, I say, open windows to create some havoc on offense. Some misplays by May where I felt like even his checkdowns, he really couldn't create anything. And is that because Will Campbell couldn't protect him to save his life? Like, I mean, that offensive line looked like it was getting bombarded time after time after time over whether it was the Seahawks offensive line when they were fully blitzing. And May couldn't connect on anything. And all the way, when it was 7-19, I believe it was, and they were driving, I think they were at the 40, and May throws that long ball, gets picked off by Julian Love. I said to myself, yeah, that's the dagger right there because you can't make a mistake like that. You already fumbled, and they got points off of that. If you keep on getting these teams, these high-quality teams like the Seattle Seahawks, points off of turnovers, you're not going to ever win a ball game like that. And to be quite fair, I know we brought up the point, with the Patriots, go tit for tat with them defensively, and they did for one half of football. They went tit for tat with them defensively, and credit to that defense. I've gave them a lot of credit throughout this playoff run, but if you're going to turn the ball over like that, there's only so much, your defense won't tire out. At that point, at the end of the third quarter, they were gassed. The Patriots defense were so gassed because I think there was more punts in the third quarter. I mean, leading up to the third quarter, I think there was 7 Patriots punts and 6 first downs for the Patriots, which was a crazy stat by itself.
Yeah, it was just such like I said, the first three quarters of this game was pretty boring. A couple field goals. I mean, what we were halfway through the third quarter when we got our first touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just on that aspect, and we can keep going back and forth. It's like I said, I will give a crazy amount of credit to the Pats defense. They did what they had to do. The Seahawks were just clearly the superior team. They really were. They were a superior team all around. Like I said, Sam Donald didn't turn the ball over. He didn't make mistakes. May. I mean that catch by Stevenson that
Oh yeah.
scored that touchdown. That was incredible, and it was funny because they pointed it out in the broadcast. That Stevenson. It was like when May threw it, he went, oh no," and then Stevenson ended up making that miraculous catch. That was great. But overall, there really wasn't any like crazy play. In this game, there really wasn't anything all that bizarre. It was just one team that was clearly a lot better than the other, and they made their statement. Like you mentioned, shout out to Sam Donald being the first guy out of that draft class. I mean, outside of Josh Rosen, I wouldn't have thought Donald would have been last on my list to win a Super Bowl out of all those
Yeah.
quarterbacks. Allen and Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. So shout out to him. I'm sure it's maybe a little bit of a happy day for Jets fans that a guy they drafted got to beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Facts.
Fortunately, it wasn't somebody from the Jets. We don't have our representative for the Jets fan base here with JV. He's a little under the weather, similar to the Patriots offense today.
Very.
So yeah, it's unfortunate we can't have him on with us tonight. But overall, I mean, listen, it's the Super Bowl regardless. We try to you try to do your best to enjoy it. What I can say for us, I know this is obviously a football analysis, but now football's out of the way. Baseball season, here we come, and
There
I
we
can't
go.
wait.
There we go. Yeah, and just to kind of wrap it up on some final thoughts about this NFL season, incredible games in the playoffs. I mean, we had a lot of amazing games, whether it was Bears, Packers, even Rams, Panthers. Like there was a lot of Seahawks. To me, it felt like Seahawks, Rams in the NFC Championship game. That was the actual Super Bowl in a way. With how great those two teams were. And credit to the Seahawks, like I said, because this 180 turnaround they did from last year missing the playoffs to now, obviously, second year with McDonald, first year with Darnold. And you see that defense, and obviously you think about the Legion of Boom, and it's kind of Legion of Boom 2.0 ish, and they call themselves the Dark Side. And you brought up Kenneth Walker, and you had that great call. Obviously, he's the first running back to win Super Bowl MVP since Terrell Davis in '98, which is amazing, absolutely phenomenal feat. But will they re-sign this guy? I think so, but he's a free agent in March, and that's going to be super interesting. And obviously, we'll get into our free agency predictions, but a lot of people are bringing that up like, wow, he's going to be a free agent in March, and this guy just ended off the season in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's a great look for him going into free agency. A lot of analysis out there like to say that the running back position is a very devalued position, and Kenneth Walker just shuttle that up for at least for the time being. I mean, like I had mentioned, he's the first running back to win the MVP since '98. Terrell Davis did that with the Broncos. So it's been almost 30 years since that's been happened. And you know what? I just felt the way he was playing throughout this playoffs. I felt like he was carrying this offense. He took a lot of the pressure off of Donald dealing with the injury. And the other thing is, I know I buried the Patriots in our last episode in our prediction, but I would like to say I do. They accomplished a feat. They did get to the Super Bowl, regardless of how they got there. They did what they had to do to get there. But it was just going into this, looking into this matchup. That's why I went the way that I did. That I just felt Seattle was just gonna kind of run the table on them, and essentially that's the way that went. But shout out to them for making it. Just making it to the Super Bowl is probably one of the hardest things you could do in professional sports. So shout out to them. Shout out to the Seahawks. I know I got a couple of friends that are that are Seahawks fans, and they're very excited. One in particular, he really couldn't speak much English when I was talking to him. So he couldn't speak much of any language, to be honest with you, when I spoke to him a little while ago. So he's ecstatic. He's through the roof. I'm happy from him. And overall, I'm just this was a wild season. I'll be honest with you, it really was. There was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of teams in the beginning that looked real promising, that looked like to be maybe real juggernauts, and kind of fell off. And Seattle was one of the most consistent teams throughout the entire season. The Patriots were as well, And I've mentioned their schedule and everything else, so I will give them that. But Seattle they were blowing people out at some points. They were playing really hard-nosed football. Um, there's a reason why they are the Super Bowl champions, and like I said, they were one of the more consistent teams throughout the season. What you mentioned going into the Super Bowl, not Super Bowl, the free agent predictions. Obviously, we're going to do that pretty soon. We got a lot of fun stuff. Just because football season is over and the Super Bowl is come and gone doesn't mean that our content for football is going to go away.
Not at all.
We're going to still do what we got to do. We're going to have our honorary Jets fan and our partner Joe on with us. So it's going to be fun. The off season is interesting because how much do you really talk about? But if any of you guys watching us now have watched our baseball shows, we're still doing baseball shows in the off season. It's always fun to football. But it really is. And then especially when you get to that point where it's, you start missing the sport, you want to hear people talk about it. So we hope that you guys join us for that. If you guys can, light it up the comments section because I know a couple of people came after me a little bit for my take on the Patriots. I'm not going to sit here and try to flex. I'm not going to do all that. Maybe a little. I kind of reminded you guys that I made a pretty good call. Really good. And and Ben did it for me too. But listen, I'm gonna act the same way when I'm wrong. It is what it is. I'll call myself out when I'm wrong. I have no problem with that. But we really do appreciate you guys. So you could light up the comment section, share this video and our entire channel with everybody you know. Maybe if I don't know, send it to everybody because we could use it. We could use the views. We see you guys. The views keep going up, the comments keep going up, the likes keep going up, and I say it all the time. You guys are the motivation to keep us going. We could just do this on a phone. We could just do this on the phone call that we do every night anyway. Now we do this to try to entertain you guys and have some fun. So I'm enjoying it. And this was our first Super Bowl with JBM, so this was good.
Yeah, obviously we would have wished for more entertaining. I mean, especially maybe a more back and forth affair, but we didn't get that. We got a defensive first half defensive masterminded game, and then it kind of opened up with the mistakes in the second half. But look, I'll say this, and we said it in our previous video as well, talking about the Super Bowl. We'll see if the Patriots do come back. I mean, look, now they're going to have a very hard schedule next year. And, they're a young team. Did they peak a little bit too early? That's something we're going to look at this upcoming season. And it's just going to be crazy because the Seahawks did what they had to do. Even if Kenneth Walker does go somewhere else in free agency, which I doubt, but, money talks. It's like if the Patriots, with how young that core is, did peak a little bit too early, and Mahomes is going to be back, Burrow, a full healthy season of Burrow, Allen Lamar, Ravens' new head coach, Minter there as well. Look, we're going to see what happens with the Patriots, but it's not going to be easy with that first place schedule that they got now.
No, it really isn't. And you know what? For the most part, they did get exposed a little bit. They got to show up that offensive line. They need another weapon on offense for them, obviously, as well. Stevenson did his thing. Stephon Diggs was, I don't know, where was he?
I don't even know.
Where was he? Did he show up? Did he get to the game late? I don't know what happened. He was practically irrelevant. Henry was a bit of a safety net. We had mentioned that in our a little prop bet that we did not hit. So if you guys bet your house, I'm not sorry because we told you not to do that. So if you did it anyway, whatever. But no, in reality, Henry was a little bit more of a safety net. And it just didn't work out. I think they need a couple more weapons, and I think they absolutely need to show up that offensive line. And then I think I could take this team. I don't mean to sound this way, but a little more serious.
Yeah.
Because I really had no faith in them. I was picking against them practically throughout the whole playoffs until the Bronco game because Bo Nix was hurt. And that's the only reason why I took the Pats. But, they got to show up that offensive line a little bit. Their defense is stellar. I think their defense is stellar. They could ride that. They had another weapon or two. They could be a very dangerous team out in the AFC, especially in the East. They'll give the Bills a run for money. They always have great games back and forth. So that should be interesting. And Kenneth Walker, to see him leave Seattle, that could be obviously I don't think Seattle's going to want that, but like I said, these teams they don't like to give big money out to these running backs. A lot of people they view the position as a very devalued position, and Kenneth Walker made a huge statement tonight with that. So we'll see how that plays out.
It's going to be interesting because obviously their backup Charbonnet, he tore his ACL in the divisional round, which that's tough. That's a recovery that, depending with you being a running back, you could either face it and, come back and face the adversity, or you're not the player that you once were. So if they do decide to give Kenneth Walker that money, which I think at this point, kind of how he's bounced back in his career, I mean he's rightfully deserved that. So yeah, just to finish off this NFL season, obviously like I said, shout out to Seahawks again, winning Super Bowl 60, crazy. I mean, what a phenomenal feat for them. 2-time Super Bowl champions in their franchise history, and kind of similar in a similar way as when they won their first one against the Broncos. Maybe not as dominant, but the defensive masterclass was right there, similar, very similar.
Yeah, I'll take the win they have it over the Broncos, maybe a little more impressive because that was the best defense versus the best offense that season, and they completely shut down that offense.
Yeah.
That Denver offense was lethal, and they made them look terrible. That was an insane Super Bowl, and I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan, so I was not happy with how that played out. I think my jersey was off by halftime. I was wearing a Peyton Manning jersey. That was gone by halftime. But just overall, I guess to maybe get close to wrapping this thing up, it was a great season. We saw a lot of things overall from our teams, our respective teams. This offseason is going to be very interesting because I think there are a lot of up and coming teams. Like you mentioned, the Patriots, they are a very young team. And shout out to Seattle too, because like we had mentioned also, they bring in Sam Darnold. They got rid of DK Metcalf. We didn't know what to expect from this team. They go out, they win 14 games, they dominate in the playoffs, they dominate the Super Bowl, and here we are. They really did look strong, and I'm a little surprised if you would have said at the beginning of the season the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't have said totally crazy, but there were a lot of other teams I would have probably had above them. So, shout out to them. They look good all season. They were very consistent. Very consistent team. Like I mentioned, they were one of the most consistent throughout the season this year.
And now, fun fact, they're up for sale actually this offseason. The Seahawks, the team, they're up
Really?
for sale for $7.8 billion. So, yeah, if anybody wants to donate here to JBM in a way, so we could potentially,
I like that.
Buy a Super Bowl team. I mean, look,
I'm in.
Look,
I'm in. Let's do it.
Throwing that idea out there. They're up for sale, which is kind of crazy. And they announced that before the Super Bowl, after the NFC Championship game. I've never seen a team do something like that, announce that they're going to be up for sale, but it's something that I'll look at, not buying it, but unless you guys want it really bad, I'll take out a big loan.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got some gold buried out in the back. I can maybe dig up and, we can maybe get something together. I like that. We'll put an offer in. Roughly, I think you and I together, maybe we could put together like $437. I think that could work out.
Yeah, around there.
That'll be our bid.
That's a good start.
Yeah, I think that's okay. So, guys, listen. Aside from listening to us, now you have to donate to the JBM buys Seattle Seahawks donation. So, you guys got to help us out with that GoFundMe. We're gonna have that posted. It'll be in the link. No, it's not. I'm totally lying, but it's
We're
fine.
kidding.
No, but yeah, like I said, it was overall it was a great season, guys. We appreciate you jumping on with us and taking this ride through, JBM's first run through the NFL season, or at least half of it, and the playoffs and our first Super Bowl, covering it and talking about it at least. Watching it now with a podcast about it, and knowing that we're going to get up and talk about it, you watch it a little differently.
Yes,
you don't really. Yeah, I feel like you do. I feel like you watch the games a little differently now. So it's interesting to maybe be on that side of it, So overall, like I said, it was a great season. Super Bowl was a little disappointing as long as the Patriots didn't win. I was happy. No, who said that?
Look, I'm happy. I'm happy. It was a great season, and we have more exciting football content coming out this offseason. NFL draft worthy, NFL free agency. Maybe we'll talk a little OTA spring, not spring training. I'm thinking baseball right off the bat, to be honest with you guys, because catchers report in 2 days, so I'm thinking that right off the bat. But we will have great NFL content this offseason, focus on a lot of free agency. I know Mike's going to be focused on the Giants this offseason, very big offseason for them, already starting off with Harbaugh and, a new regime there. So we're going to have a lot of content still in football, so keep eyes out.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Like I said, as always, we do appreciate you. We do see you. We do see the views. We see the comments. We see the likes. If you guys can, keep liking, keep commenting, keep sharing. Send this out to everybody you know, any sports fan or anybody that's maybe trying to get into sports that we could, create a dialect and maybe,
Absolutely.
elevate their level of, sports knowledge in a sense. Not that we're experts or anything like that, but it's always fun to do that. Guys, listen, as always, we appreciate you hanging out with us.